Hey, let me ask you something. And I want you to really think about this before you answer. When's the last time you touched someone, really touched them, and felt the connection actually deepen right in that moment? Not a handshake, not a pat on the back. I mean a touch that made her breathe a little slower, relax a little more, and lean into you instead of away. If you're struggling to remember, you're not alone. And I'm not here to make you feel bad about that. I'm here to tell you that after more than 20 years working as a sexologist and relationship therapist, I've sat across from hundreds of men, good men, caring men, who never got taught this. Nobody sat them down and said, here's how the female body actually works. Here's what she's not going to tell you out loud, but desperately wants you to understand. I'm Dr. Ava Remington, and today I want to share something that most men, I'd say easily 9 out of 10, have genuinely never considered. There are 4 specific places on a woman's body where being touched, when it's done right, creates an almost immediate sense of trust, safety, and deep emotional connection. And the last one, I promise you, it's going to surprise you. Most people completely overlook it. Now, before I get into the 4 spots, I need to say something first, because this is actually the most important thing in this entire video, and I don't want you to skip past it. I know some of you watching right now are in relationships that have gone cold. Maybe you've been married 15, 20, 25 years, and somewhere along the way, the physical closeness just faded. You're sleeping in the same bed, but you feel miles apart. I know some of you aren't in a relationship at all right now, and maybe you're thinking, Dr. Ava, what's the point of learning this if I don't even have anyone to use it on? I hear you. I genuinely do. And here's what I want you to know. Understanding how women experience touch, what it means to them emotionally, neurologically, psychologically, that knowledge changes how you show up. It changes your confidence, your presence, the way you make women feel around you. This isn't just technique, this is understanding. So whether you're rekindling something with someone you've loved for decades, or you're working on building something new, what I'm about to share applies to you. Now, let's talk about what's actually happening in a woman's body and brain when she's touched in the right way. Human skin isn't just a physical barrier, it's an emotional communication system. There are specialized nerve fibers, scientists call them C-tactile afferents, that respond specifically to gentle, slow, affectionate touch. These fibers don't respond to a firm handshake or quick tap. They respond to tenderness. And when they're activated, they send signals directly to the parts of the brain associated with safety, bonding, and emotional intimacy. What happens next is almost like a chain reaction. The brain releases oxytocin. You've probably heard it called the bonding hormone or the love hormone. Cortisol, the stress hormone, drops. Heart rate settles, breathing slows, and the person being touched starts to feel, on a biological level, that they are safe with you, that you can be trusted, that this is a good place to be. Research out of the University of North Carolina found that affectionate touch between partners significantly reduces blood pressure and increases oxytocin levels, especially in women. That's not poetry, that's physiology. Touch is literally medicine when it's offered with care. But here's the flip side, and this is just as important. Touch done wrong produces the opposite effect. An abrupt hand on the waist from someone she's not fully comfortable with. A shoulder grab that feels possessive instead of warm. These don't just fall flat, they actively damage trust. They trigger the threat response. And once that wall goes up, it takes a long time to come back down. So before we ever talk about where, we have to talk about how. The how is everything. Slow over fast, soft over firm, intentional over careless. A touch that says, I see you and I'm here, will always land differently than a touch that says, I want something. Women are extraordinarily perceptive to this distinction, not because they're suspicious, but because they're wired to read emotional signals with remarkable accuracy. The psychology and neuroscience literature is very clear on this. So approach everything I'm about to tell you with this mindset. Your intention is to give, not to take. Your goal is to make her feel seen, safe, and cherished. If that's the energy behind your touch, these 4 places will open something in her that no words ever could. All right, let's get into it. The first place, and this one surprises a lot of men, on is the inner thigh. Now stay with me here, because I'm not talking about anything overtly sexual. I want you to set that framing aside completely for a moment. What I'm talking about is the psychological and neurological significance of this particular area. The inner thigh is what we in behavioral psychology call a personal zone. It's a part of the body that almost no one touches in day-to-day life. Not a coworker, not a friend, not even a doctor in most cases. It sits right at the edge of personal and intimate space. And that boundary quality is exactly what gives it such emotional power. When a woman is touched there, gently, naturally, without urgency, by someone she trusts, her nervous system responds immediately. The density of sensory nerve endings in this region is remarkably high. Even the lightest contact registers strongly in the brain, and psychologically, the inner thigh represents something like a threshold. There's a simultaneous sense of, this is close to the line, but I want to be here. That tension, that sweet anticipation, is a significant part of what creates heightened emotional and physical response. A survey conducted by a relationship counselor I respect, she's been doing this work about as long as I have, found that when women were asked where on their body they most wanted to be touched in an intimate context, the inner thigh ranked second out of the entire body. And yet most men I've spoken with over my career have never consciously thought about this. So how do you do it right? The key word is incidentally, naturally, like it belongs there. If you're sitting together on the couch watching something, let your hand rest near her knee. If you're at a restaurant and the moment feels right, a light placement of your hand on her leg. Not reaching, not grabbing, just arriving. The way warm sunlight falls on a surface without asking permission. The women I've worked with describe the sensation of being touched on the inner thigh by someone they feel safe with as an immediate elevation of their heartbeat, a sudden warmth, a sense of being desired without being pressured. That's the magic combination. Desired and safe at the same time. That's rare, and you can offer it. Don't rush past this moment into something more. The point isn't a destination. The point is the feeling itself. Slow down. Let her feel it. The second place is the back. I want to tell you about a client of mine, a man in his early 60s, retired, been married for 32 years. He came to see me because he said the intimacy in his marriage had dried up. Not just physical intimacy, emotional intimacy. They were polite, they were functional, but the warmth was gone. He said it felt like living with a very considerate roommate. I asked him, when did you last touch your wife in a way that wasn't about anything except connection? He couldn't answer. I gave him one piece of homework. Just one. That week, when his wife was sitting on the couch in the evening, I told him to sit next to her, put his hand on her back, and just leave it there. No agenda, no words required, just warmth through his palm transmitted to her. He called me 3 days later. He said she had turned toward him, genuinely turned toward him, the way she used to, for the first time in years. The back is an extraordinary place. Here's why. It's a part of the body a woman cannot see. It's behind her, literally outside her line of vision, and that makes it neurologically fascinating. When someone approaches from a direction you can't monitor, your nervous system has two possible responses: threat or surrender. And when the person approaching has earned your trust, the nervous system chooses surrender, a deep, involuntary release of tension that feels like being held, being protected, being known. Medically, the area along the spine, particularly between the shoulder blades and down to the lower back, is dense with parasympathetic nerve pathways. These are the nerves associated with rest and recovery, with calm, with safety. When you place a warm hand there and move it slowly, from the shoulders downward, the full palm making contact, no pressure, just presence, you are literally activating her body's relaxation response. Breathing deepens. Muscle tension releases. Heart rate steadies. One of my patients, a woman in her late 50s, told me that during a period of real distance in her marriage, her husband reached over one night and placed his hand on her back. Just that. She said she started crying, not from sadness, but from the sudden recognition that she still belonged to someone, that she was still wanted, that she was still seen. The back communicates, I'm behind you. I'm not going anywhere. You are safe. Use the full palm, not just the fingertips. Move slowly, shoulder to lower back, like you're tracing something precious. Don't tickle, don't press too hard. Think of it as transmitting warmth. Do this when she's relaxed, on the couch, lying in bed, standing in the kitchen. The quieter the moment, the more powerful the message. The third place is the nape of the neck, and in American culture, this one carries its own particular beauty. There's a reason the back of the neck has been romanticized in film and literature for as long as storytelling has existed. Think of every scene where a man brushes the hair away from a woman's neck or leans in close from behind while she's standing at a window. There's something about that gesture, the combination of closeness, care, and the slight sense of vulnerability, that touches something deep and instinctive. The nape of the neck is neurologically one of the most sensitive areas of the body. The skin here is thin. There's very little distance between the surface and the underlying nerves, which means touch registers there with unusual immediacy and intensity. The region is also home to branches of the vagus nerve, which, as I mentioned earlier, plays a major role in the body's sense of safety and relaxation. Gentle stimulation of this area has been shown to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, reduce anxiety, and produce what researchers describe as a pleasurable calm, a state where excitement and serenity exist at the same time. That combination, that paradox, is what makes the nape of the neck so powerful. She feels simultaneously awakened and at ease. It's as if her body remembers something ancient and good. A patient of mine, I'll call her Linda, she's in her late 40s, told me about a moment that she said changed how she felt about her husband. She was in the kitchen one Sunday morning making coffee. He came up behind her, gently lifted her hair, and kissed the back of her neck. She said, and I'm not exaggerating her words here, she said it was one of the most intimate moments of their entire marriage, not their wedding night, not a romantic vacation. A Tuesday morning in the kitchen with a cup of coffee in her hand. Because of that one gesture, how you approach this matters enormously. The nape of the neck is sensitive to abruptness. If you come in fast or rough, it registers as startling, even threatening. The approach has to be slow, deliberate, almost tentative in the best possible way. Brush her hair aside gently first. Let her feel your hand before anything else. Then, when the moment is right, let your lips or fingertips find that spot just below the hairline. And I'll say this, your voice matters here too. A low, unhurried voice saying something simple. You look beautiful tonight, or just her name said softly. Engages her hearing at the same moment you engage her sense of touch. The combined effect is profound. She doesn't just feel touched, she feels chosen. Now, the fourth place, the one most men never think about. The one I promised you at the beginning. It's the ears, specifically the area just below the earlobe, the space behind the ear, and the sensation of being whispered to closely. I know that might seem almost too simple, but let me explain what's actually happening physiologically, because it's genuinely remarkable. The ears are one of the most neurologically complex regions of the entire body surface. Unlike most areas of skin, the ear region receives branches from multiple different nerve systems simultaneously, including, again, the vagus nerve, but also the auriculotemporal nerve and the greater auricular nerve. The result is that gentle stimulation around and near the ear produces sensations that the brain processes as deeply intimate, even spiritual in quality. It's not just physical, it registers as significant. The area behind the earlobe in particular is what I call a forgotten zone. It's a place that people almost never touch casually in everyday life. Not in greeting, not in routine contact, not in most forms of affection, which means that when it is touched, in the right context with the right intention, the brain lights up with recognition. This is special. This person is close to me in a way that almost no one else is. I've had women in my practice describe the feeling of being whispered to, someone they trust, speaking low and close to their ear, as one of the most immediately arresting physical sensations they've experienced. Not just pleasant, arresting, as in everything else in the room fades and all attention collapses into that single point of contact. Research in behavioral neuroscience has confirmed what these women are describing. Whispering near the ear, particularly in a low, calm voice, is one of the most potent activators of the body's intimacy response. Heart rate increases, skin sensitivity heightens, the emotional centers of the brain become more active. How do you approach this? Even more carefully than the others. The ears are also highly sensitive to things that feel intrusive, a voice that's too loud, a breath that's too forceful, contact that's too sudden. Everything here needs to be gentle to the point of barely there. The ideal scenario, you're close together, she's relaxed, maybe you're sitting next to each other or lying down. You reach over and brush her hair back gently, the same motion that works for the neck, and let your fingers trace softly behind her ear, or lean in to say something close, letting your breath and your voice arrive just before your lips do. Keep it brief, keep it tender. Think less about doing something and more about being near. One final thought, and this is the one I want you to carry with you after this video ends. All 4 of these places, the inner thigh, the back, the nape of the neck, and the ears, they are not buttons to press in sequence. They are not a checklist. They are places where a woman's emotional life lives close to the surface, where trust and sensation and years of lived experience are stored just beneath the skin. The reason touch in these places works when it works, and the reason it falls flat or feels wrong when it does, has nothing to do with the location and everything to do with what you're bringing to it. Are you present? Are you paying attention to her? Her breathing, her body language, whether she's leaning towards you or away? Are you in a hurry? Because if you are, she'll feel it. Women read the emotional content of a touch before they process anything else about it. They're not evaluating your technique. They're evaluating your intention. The men who understand this, the ones who've learned to slow down, to read the room, to touch with genuine care rather than expectation, those are the men that women describe, years and decades later, as unforgettable. Not because of anything dramatic, because of the way they made her feel safe enough to be fully herself. That's what you're building toward, not a moment, a language. A way of being with someone that says, without words, I'm here, I see you, I'm not going anywhere. And if you've gotten to the end of this video thinking, I want this, but I don't know how to get there, I want you to sit with that honestly. Building intimacy starts before any touch ever happens. It starts with showing up consistently, with listening, with patience, with the willingness to be present even when presence is hard. If you found something valuable here today, please subscribe. I put out new content every week on relationships, intimacy, and what it actually means to connect deeply with another person at any stage of life. And drop a comment below. What resonated with you most? What question do you still have? I read every single one, and I'd love to hear from you. I'll see you in the next one.